Welcome in. I'm Armando Castaneda, and today I'm going to be previewing a game that's coming out on Kickstarter on May 10th. And the game is called Fourth Down. Fourth Down is a fun and simple card game that plays anywhere from 2 to 5 players in about 10 to 15 minutes. So, without further ado, let's start breaking it down. Let's talk mechanics. There's only 3 mechanics in this game: hand management, ladder climbing, and lose your turn. So hand management, it's a card game. So you're trying to manage the cards that are in your hand and not get stuck with a whole bunch at the end of the game. The first person to get rid of all their cards essentially wins the game. So the better the hand management, the better the game. Ladder climbing. So ladder climbing is you must play a card equal to or higher than the last card played. If you cannot do that, then you will have to pick up all of those cards that are in the discard pile, and this is where hand management picks up again. There is also a card in this deck that's called Fumble, and it's just like the skip card in Uno, where you get to play Fumble. The person next to you loses their turn, and then the player after them gets to go. So in a 2 player game, you're skipping the player and you get to go again. And then in a 3 or 4 or 5 player game, it just goes to the next player. So those are the mechanics of this game. Very simple, not too complicated. All right, let's talk about the theme of this game. So this is the first American football themed game that I have played, and I actually really enjoy it. I mean, it's not that the card game itself doesn't play anything like football, but the fact that I'm playing a card game and it does have a football theme to it, the terminology within the game is nice. Like I really did enjoy it. My sons enjoyed the football terminology, the football cards and stuff like that. It really did keep them engaged. So as far as like the theme of what this thing looks like, they did a really good job of encompassing that whole football world into this very simplistic card game. How to play this competitive card game. So it's very simple. The setup is simple. Once you understand why you're setting it up the way you are, it is very simple. And gameplay is even quicker. So let's just talk setup real quick. You deal 3 cards face down. Do not look at those cards. Those are your end game war cards that you're going to flip over and try to win at the end of the game. Then you're going to deal out the middle phase, which is 2 face-up cards to everybody. Then you're going to do the start phase, which is deal 3 cards to everybody, and that is your hand. So before the game starts, you can take any of the 3 cards that are in your hand and swap them with the 2 face-up cards. You must do that before gameplay starts. You cannot swap out the face cards at any other time. So during gameplay, this is where the ladder mechanic comes into play. So whatever card gets out first, you have to either equal or play a card higher than that card in order to be able to draw another card into your hand. If you cannot beat it or equal it, then you have to pick up the whole entire discard pile, which is not fun. Well, let's be honest. But at some point, like, it can be beneficial. And in a 4 to 5 player game, it's not the end of the world. I promise. So there's been multiple times that I've had to pick up the discard pile, and it's it's actually more beneficial because now I have more cards that I can actually play, feed, kill. Like it really does at some point feel like it's a benefit to have more cards in your hand, especially when it comes down towards, like, when it's coming down towards the end. There's a little bit of strategy that can be played, once we're in the face up phase, that middle phase of some of the hand. So, which is really nice. And then, so once you get through all of the discard or the draw deck, sorry, and you've discarded them all, then now you've emptied your hand. Now you can go into the face up phase. Then you can play one of the 2 face-up cards. You can play them both for the same. It's really nice that you can throw, multiples of the same suit, and that always works out great. And you want to get to that war deck as fast as possible. But then at that point, you have to hope that the cards that are underneath in your war deck are high, because if you end up with low cards, especially if you end up with a 10 in there, during the end of the game, trying to get rid of a 10 is brutal. So you want to hope that you have good cards in that deck that's hidden, so that you can absolutely win the game, because it is hard to win if you have bad cards under there. So that's where the luck comes into play. Let's start breaking down my favorite part of this game and what I liked the most. And it was the special power cards that they have in the deck. There's 4 of them. You have touchdown, timeout, fumble, and interception. these cards are done so well, and it really does tie the theme of the game into this very simple card game, because this is where you actually start getting the football lingo. And what touchdown does is it essentially wipes the discard pile clean. So the more discarded cards you can get out of gameplay, the better, in my opinion. The timeout card, that one basically goes, whoa, timeout. I'm not going to play a card. The responsibility now falls to the player to my left to beat the card that was just played. So just like in real life, you can pause the game, you can time out, and just pass the buck, which is really, really nice. Fumble. So fumble's like a skip in Uno. You play the fumble card, skips the next player in line, and it goes to the player after that. And it's his responsibility now to beat the last card that you were supposed to beat. So if an 80 was played, I threw a fumble, skips the next person, and the person after that now is responsible to try to beat or equal the 80. So very good card. I really enjoyed how that one played during gameplay. And then interception, just like touchdown, where you get to, like, you don't permanently remove the discard pile, but you reset the ladder. So if it was up to 80 or 90 and you play interception, now the next player can play a 10, a 20, a 30, whatever the case may be. And this is where the game gets a little bit intriguing, because the more interceptions that are played and no one plays a touchdown, the bigger the discard pile gets. And that's when the game gets interesting, because somebody can end up with 20 cards because somebody threw, we did the ladder 4 different times and now it finally popped, and now somebody's stuck with a whole bunch of cards. So it is really interesting to see how these special cards play throughout the gameplay, and they are all done really, really well. So kudos to you guys and the creation of those cards. They integrate with the game beautifully. Let's talk downfalls. Not every game is perfect. And this one, although it tried, for being a card game and nice, simple fun, it still does have a flaw that I see. And the flaw isn't necessarily bad, and it doesn't kill the game, but I just prefer it in another way. So here's what I'm talking about. In a two-player game, uh, the amount of fun that you have is really hindered because you are essentially just passing cards back and forth to one another, because you finally get to a point to where you can't beat the cards. So then now, one person has the whole discard pile, and you can play the cards correctly to where you can literally give the whole deck of cards that you just picked up back to the other guy, and it just goes back and forth that way until somebody finally runs out of cards. That could be fun. It does give for a laugh here or two. It's not that it's bad, um, but the game really shines when it comes to a 4 or 5 player game. And I recommend, that's the best player count to me, is 4 or 5 players. The game is fun. The game feels less, luck based, less like, I'm just shoving a whole bunch of cards to one person and then he's shoving them all the way back to me. Now the cards seem to be distributed amongst the table evenly. Now not one person keeps getting hosed all the time. The game just feels so much better. And if you do, in a bigger game, if you happen to, you know, get busted one time and have to pick up the discard pile, it doesn't feel like you're going to lose the game. You still have chances to be able to get back into it, because other people can, you know, can now start picking up. Like, the game doesn't feel lost, whereas in a 2 player game, it can feel like you're not going to make your way back, or the game's just going to be drawn on and on, because now you're just passing the cards back and forth until somebody finds a touchdown. Somebody gets lucky in their war phase and they get an interception or a fumble, and they can find ways to get it. So, like, in a 2 player game, it feels really luck based, whereas in the 4 to 5, it actually feels more balanced and feels a lot, it's more fun for everybody at that point. So that's the only downfall that I have with this game. All right, to sum it up, should you or should you not back this game? My answer to you is this: if you have teenagers, if you have younger kids, if you have, family members in your life that don't really love heavy rules, that like simple, that like fun, and, like quick games, then I would recommend this game for anybody who has those scenarios or those situations in their life. I have a 15 and I have an 18-year-old son, and trying to find games that where we're not sitting at the table and they're doing this the whole entire time that we're trying to play the game. You know, the whole I'm playing on my phone and trying to multitask. That's not fun. But in this game, I was able to table about 7 games with my teenagers, and not one time did a phone come out. Like it kept them engaged. You are able to play over and over and over again. It's fast. It's fun. They're winning. They're losing. They're talking crap the whole entire time. I was able to play with my parents, my grandparents. They were able to pick it up and understand the game. I was able to play with my 5-year-old, and although she was close to being able to understand it, give it about a year or two, 7, 8. I feel like is the sweet spot for kids to fully understand this game. And so, if you have those people in your lives, or you like to travel, because remember this game is laminated, the cards are laminated. So if you like to travel, you like to do things, like this game will be for you, and I do recommend it. So all right, if you're still here, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. And I will give you some links to some of my other videos. If you're interested in Kickstarter stuff, I do have one other link to another Kickstarter that just went live in May 6th that I will attach to the end of this video that you can go check out. And that is another card game. So please hit that like and subscribe. I'm out. Thanks.